think it was I remember the trailers. Yeah, it was a romantic drama.
I remember it as a comedy.
It was hilarious.
I saw two different trailers. One was definitely the romantic comedy.
Yeah.
It made it look super lighthearted.
It
And the other
had
was like
electric
all
light
depressing.
But I think thing about marketing and the way it's going is it does seem to be going. I don't want to say singularity, but more and more foxy as time goes on. But that could just be my very narrow view. Thank you. Hi, guys.
Do you think that's part of the sci-fi ghetto and fantasy ghetto where books and any form of media that's essentially sci-fi or fantasy, authors get into some sort of denial state because the author thinks themselves, they've got this perception of sci-fi and fantasy for like novels.
It's kind of similar to the young adult ghetto. It's changing. Like it used to be, oh, you write young adult, you're not a real writer. And nowadays, that's all anyone buys. And I think with sci-fi and fantasy, people are hoping that it's going to go the same way because a lot of young adult is sci-fi and fantasy these days. So they're kind of merging, and you're seeing a lot more young sci-fi and fantasy that's maybe acceptable because it is for kids and we like kids stuff now, so it's for everyone.
I think also it's different books as it is for film in terms of
And mostly talking about books.
Yeah, in terms of I think books are actually a lot more boxy and regimented film because film, there are a lot of highly respected sci-fi works. They don't, it can be associated in the lizard brain with the pulpy dumbness, but I find it's easier to break out of that with the film than it is with the book because books are like you have to have 120,000 words and you're going to have a dragon on the cover and it's going to be like a big sexy man even though that's not what the characters look like. Yeah.
In film, the line more is drawn with horror, whereas horror is looked down upon. B horror movies, where B sci-fi movies aren't as much, snubbed. But they're seen more as just movies, not trash.
Before we open it up again, what do you guys want to talk about? What's that? Okay, yeah, sure. It's January. Zero Dark 30.
Oscar Texas Chainsaw.
Oh yeah, Texas.
I've seen John Dies at the End. I've seen it. I would absolutely recommend everyone. So John Dies at the End is a book by David Wong, who's one of who's like editor-in-chief for Craft. He wrote it for several years. It's a great book. Absolutely read it. It's hilarious and pants-wettingly frightening at the same time. It's a beautiful blend of the genres. The movie is deeply flawed, but just like absolutely worth watching. Support that kind of independent film. It is so weird. You will not see another film like it made anytime soon because Hollywood will not make a movie like that. So support it. It's absolutely worth watching, but it does have some flaws. So it's really good to talk about as well.
We don't talk about flaws.
Only the positives. Only the positives. That's what sells.
Positive.
Yeah, positivity. That's us a lot of views.
Does it require you to understand it, or is it a different way?
No, it does. It's a really good adaptation. You can jump right into it without having read the book. But you'll have more fun if you have read the book because you can see like, oh wow, they stuck really close here and then they skipped about 800 pages.
So mean.
I didn't ask for this. He just did it to me.
Meanwhile,
I'll share it with you.
Yes, please. You can tell that he's crying.
yeah. So I guess since our site's only been live for 2 weeks, if you you want to talk about like channel loss and stuff, that's okay too. Yeah. Guy.
I have a question for Rantasmo. Out of all the stuff you talked about in the show, what would you say it needed the most gay?
Well, I think the action movies episode was the most, because I feel like my channel is a little bit misleading, because nothing on my show, almost nothing on my show actually does, it's like the gayest thing ever, for the most part. But the action movie episode was a bit unique, and actually, that's one genre where there really isn't a whole, like, much of a gay element at all, it's almost homogeneously straight. So I would say that's one thing where I would like to see more gay main characters in action movies. Watch the episode when you hear more about that.
Okay. First off, Elisa, congratulations on getting engaged. You two, you're engaged to each other. This question is going to be for Todd. Todd. Right now, we're doing this favorite male reviewer. That guy with the glasses. Favorite male. And I love his stuff.
That's great because I'm not actually male.
Anyway, really looking forward to the year-end stuff. What do you think of the not drive-by big train song this year, 50 Ways to Say Goodbye, which sounded like a mix between Phantom of the Opera and a mariachi band?
I plan to expand on this in one of the top 10s. Which one? Try and guess. The name of it is 50 Ways to Say Goodbye. It is clearly a ripoff of 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover by Paul Simon, except that it is profoundly stupid. It's a
comedy song.
I don't hear Phantom of the Opera in it, I just hear another drive-by, which is bizarre because usually when you rip yourself off, it's not on the same album.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Yes.
I woke up on time and got here early, so I just get water.
Yeah, we got to be pushed by stimulants.
Actually, I can see the code label.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Otherwise, I won't get paid.
Yeah, that's part of why I harp on product placement so much. Is I used to work in a firm where I had to monitor product placement, so I see it. And did you see it in Wreck-It Ralph? Did you see the Subway cup? I was like, I've never seen that before. Like I've seen product placement, but usually it was relevant. It was just a Subway cup. Like, I'm in an arcade drinking Subway. Okay. So, okay. Oh, okay. You then you. Yeah.
Knife fight.
This is mostly for Kyle, but anyone who does do you find that you have to do a lot of background research in the culture that the film is coming out of and an audience, or do you kind of just wing it and look into the most product?
Most definitely, I do a lot of research. I always try to, because I always try to be one step ahead of my commenters. Sorry, that sounds condescending.
No, it is true.
I mean,
There's like
They're going to say that you missed this obscure thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's always someone. But then again, every time that happens, I learn something new. So I'm really glad that I read all the comments. I really do. And I always learn something that I missed. And I grow as a person because of you guys.
None of us have ever left comments.
Whenever I do a foreign film, I always try to do at least some background research into the culture. In case like there's a thing that I missed. Like, remember when I did that Christmas Eve thing with the Crazy Santa and the Apocalypse, the Macedonian thing. That was a great episode. I wrote a line in about it was weird that Santa was asking a kid what he wanted for New Year's. And I didn't know that was a thing in the Eastern Orthodox Church, at least in Macedonia. So I actually had to cut that line out and save myself a lot of trouble from angry commenters. But really, whenever you're looking at a foreign film, in general, it's good to know at least a little bit about the culture that it was made in. Because every piece of art is a product of its culture. Every artist is a product of his or her culture, and if you want to understand it better, understand their roots.
This
Which is-
includes us. Like,
Yes.
I think that, like, yeah, that's one of the more frustrating things whenever you kind of get the anti-curious crowd, I guess, that kind of, they don't like the, you're thinking too hard about this thing, you're reading too much into it, and sometimes you are, but just as often you're not.
Maybe a Serbian film actually had a point. For example, maybe the guy actually had some form of PTSD, and that may have colored his views. It's just, and that's why I didn't want to make my Serbian film review, just not a whole lot of branding. So I tapered that off at the end.
Well, and I read too much into things because that's more fun to me.
And that's why we started this website.
Yeah.
We read too much. Someone's gonna do it. Well, you had one.
Yes. This is a question to Todd. From what we've seen, when you were doing the Robocraft, how long did it take you to get into that thing?
Half an hour.
And 5 people.
Yeah. It wasn't so much the time, which was extensive, it was how much help I needed to get into it.
It was really badass, though. He was so happy. Like, once he actually got it out, he was like,
They didn't let me keep it.
yeah, it's like in a storage room in Chicago somewhere. You have first.
Me?
Bullet head, yeah.
Okay, this is for Elisa. I love your vampire reviews, and I was just wondering if, because of the negative flack from Twilight, if you were worried about people getting into your show and all the amazing media that you cover.
If I'm worried about them what?
Like, the
Like,
baggage,
not-
the vampire baggage from Twilight.
Yeah, like not.
People like, vampires.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people tell me, you got me to like vampires again. I used to hate vampires, but I watched your stuff and then I changed my mind. So it's, despite that, people have still been watching me. I don't know that if there are still people out there who don't because of that, but all of that baggage that's in the air in the world with vampires right now is why I started the show in the first place, just because that was really interesting to me in a cultural sense, and I wanted to talk about, what's happened to the world of vampires in society and pop culture. So if that keeps people away, then it just proves the point of why I'm doing the show in the first place, I guess.
That seems also like a lot of the reason people hate Twilight is because it disrespects vampires.
Yeah.
Mike?
Actually, this is for you, Elise. Speaking of like vampire stuff, have you ever looked at any of the vampire role-playing games? Like stuff like World of Darkness, White Wolf?
I used to play Requiem, like in a LARP, for a short time. And so that's mostly what I'm familiar with, not the old World of Darkness, just the new stuff. And I've done research into it to support points that I've made and talk about other things. So I'm familiar with it, but not a pro.
Would you ever consider doing an entire episode dedicated to that system? There's a lot of things to say in those games are different from the movies.
Yeah, it's a very interesting world they've created. But doing episodes on things like games is difficult because working with a visual medium like video essays as we do, you have to have something visual to show. So what do you show for a game unless I were to be able to film a game being played, which is a possibility. I would have nothing to show on screen other than just talking head or maybe book covers. It's like when I was talking about the book sales of Twilight. I had nothing to show on screen, so I showed a bunch of cakes. It's just, once you start writing things and you realize, crap, there's no visual representation of this thing I'm talking about, what do I show on screen? That's why I don't talk about books, even though there are so many vampire books and games as well. I'd like to, I just would have to figure out how to do it.
Well, there is Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, but I would talk about that as a show, not as the game. I would mention the game, of course. You first.
I have 2 parts. Favorite thing you reviewed and least favorite thing you reviewed.
What's that?
Favorite thing you reviewed and least favorite thing you reviewed.
Yeah.
Like the favorite media or the favorite review of
favorite read. It's like
Not really. I feel like I get into the same thing for mine. Freddie got fingered for both.
I really don't think you understand how painful it was to watch that.
But we're really proud of
I think it broke me. Didn't I like?
She started.
Oh yeah.
I was on the